everyone, and welcome to Past the Noise, the podcast where we have open forum discussion just based around either one topic or a number of topics. Tonight we have a number of topics, and we just throw out a discussion and we welcome you to join us. You can make comments in the comment section if you have a question or comment you want to make, or from time to time, I will be posting a calling link in the comment section and you can use that to come on and talk with us if you choose to do it that way. But either way, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us on this journey tonight. I am your co-host, Elder Michael Hightower, joined as always by Apostle TB Walker. Apostle, how you doing?
Awesome, awesome. I like
Yeah,
that. The journey.
yeah,
Come
it's a
with us
journey.
on this journey.
It's a journey. It's a journey. I mean, there's so much happening all around this country, around the world, and we try to pick topics that will be relevant and interesting to people and throw them out and see, we can have a conversation about them. But I think the journey as a whole, this is our 26th episode,
Right.
has been fantastic and I've enjoyed it. And,
I have to.
we keep learning and growing and figuring stuff out and just the show evolves, which is fine. But I think we kind of hit our rhythm here in terms of what this is going to look like. And we're just glad that people are, coming on and enjoying and interacting. And I think that was the whole purpose. The whole purpose was let's just have a conversation. Let's not name
Right.
call and screaming and this, that, and this. Get my point across. Let's have a conversation where we learn things we didn't know, where we actually have a real discussion and just get to the root of issues. There's so many issues
Right.
to look at. So,
Well, you know what, man? I like the fact that you said it's a journey.
mhm,
Because so much of what I think we try to do, and so much of what it may be counter to people's expectations is that the show is not about answering a question.
mhm,
Okay, so at the end of it there's got to be a solution, and right, in a lot of circumstances that's what it's all about. But I think this journey is really the journey of learning and finding that there are roots of things, and that there's not just necessarily one root but multiple roots. And as we're going on this journey, we're learning kind of with those people that are with us, through
right.
their conversation, through their
Yeah,
input. We're giving out some information, but we're also open to receive
absolutely.
information as well. And that's what makes the journey what it is. As great as
Absolutely.
it is.
Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely. I mean, a topic that interests me doesn't mean that I have studied it for years. I
Right,
might have, you look up some stuff, you get some information, but there may be another perspective or another strain of thought on it, and that's fine. I mean, that's what we're here to do,
right,
to hash it all out. So we're not stuck on this is it and this is the thing. Like we're not,
right.
like you said, we're not lecturing. Not a lecture, just not teaching. This is like, hey, I saw this thing on YouTube, and what do you think about it? So it's more of that than anything else. So yeah, absolutely. We welcome people joining in, and with that, let's jump in right to our first topic.
Okay.
We have several, on tap. We'll see how many we get to. The first topic we had was vaping. And vaping is essentially smoking, but instead of inhaling, cigarette smoke, it's vapors, hence the term vaping. And so, you think it would be common sense that if you inhale something into your body or ingest something into your body, that's not other than air, that's not doesn't occur naturally in nature, that it could cause you some issues.
Right,
But I believe that in the world that we live in, we seem to have an infinite capacity to risk health or physical well-being for pleasure. Like we'll always roll the dice on that's going to feel good, so I'm going to go ahead and give
right,
it see what happens. I think we have an infinite almost capacity for that, to try to seek physical pleasure and comfort and satisfaction, even though we know the risks, even though the risks are right in front of
right,
you, obvious as day, we still say, yeah, you know, either it's not going to happen to me or the benefits of whatever it is are so great that I'm going to go ahead and do it. I mean, we'll consume, alcohol until we can't see straight, still get behind the wheel of a car.
right.
Will engage in high risk sexual behaviors. That it's not going to be me that's going to catch up. I mean, it's just kind of crazy. But I think that's sort of where we are, not just in this country, but I think in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think, um,
Well,
you know,
it's historical. When you look at it, it's not just as we look at it from our modern perspective, and
mhm,
who's the greatest consumer of drugs in the world and all those things. That's been around since the very, very beginning of time. Noah, what's the first thing he did when he got off after he gave sacrifice? He gets drunk, right? So it's part of the human failing, that I think that is there, and also a human desire to try to get to a higher plane without God. It's kind of right. It's kind of our natural leaning. It's been around. If you look at the Andes, look at the natives. It's always been there. The peace pipe, and all those other things that have been there. The consumption of mushrooms and mescaline. It's always been there from even medicinal purposes, but really closely connected to spirituality, where man is really attempting to get out of himself, and that's a kind of an interesting paradigm when you really kind of think of it. That there's almost a knowledge that there's no good thing in here. I can't see clear here. But it's a rejection of the only way we can see clear, which is through Christ. But I suspect you do have that real serious desire of man to try to get there and exalt his throne in some ways without going the one way, that narrow way.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about just in this case, we're talking about vaping. You're talking about vaping. You're talking about sort of on some level, right? You alter your mindset, right? You're relaxing, or you're whatever you're doing. You're trying to alter your mindset. The mushrooms and stuff is a more not extreme version of that, but it's the same thing. Like you're trying to alter your state of mind, right? You're trying to be more than what you see that as humans can be. I mean, we have limitations, and you're trying to exceed those limitations by artificial means. Artificial means to sort of do things to your body that are not natural, not supposed to be done.
Well, I don't, isn't that what we do every day, right? Aren't our vitamins kind of the same thing? Let me replace testosterone, right? I mean, human growth hormones. As we look at all of the, weight loss things, aren't we all? Isn't that kind of the world in really in terms of altering where we are? I mean, in some ways, doesn't that connect to even the whole sexual revolution with the transgender? And okay, so now I'm kind of out of this body, though I'm in the shell. I feel like this. In some ways, that's really humanity from its very inception after the fall, in a way. It's kind of humans and how we've never been quite comfortable with where we are.
Yeah, I think vitamins are a little different from some of the things you mentioned, although the principle is the same, right? The principle is I'm missing something and I'm going to use this other thing to do it. So rather than eating a broccoli, right? Rather than eating broccoli and carrots, let me take this gummy real quick, and it does the same. Yeah, so the principle is the same. I agree. You could argue that they're harmful, that they could be harmful, like too much of anything, right? Too much vitamin A, too much, yeah, absolutely could be harmful. So you could argue that anything that you put into your body, that clearly isn't like natural, would have a potentially higher potential for harm, right? You run the risk of abusing it. You run the risk of all those things. So I get where you're coming from. I think it's a little different, but I think the baseline principle and sort of the motivation is sort of the same. Like it's almost like it's a shortcut. I'm not going to just, like, again, I'm not going to just eat chicken and beef and other proteins and things like that. I'm going to put this in my little smoothie thing. And I'm going to drink this 2 times a day. And that's different, right? That's different than consuming things that your body digests naturally and all that. It's different. It is different.
And in some ways, and you're right, but in some ways, as you look at this, right, again, not to kind of turn this into a Bible study, but like if the world is a place of upheaval, right, and if the world is a place of great confusion, is it unnatural that people are going to need something to be calm? Is it unnatural that we're in a world now where people need something to go to sleep? I need, which should be natural, right? See, that's a normal, natural thing. And yet, let me get this Ambien. Give me about 10 minutes. I'll be woozy and talking crazy. And then the next thing you know, finally, I'm asleep, right? Michael Jackson was taking propofol to, an anesthetic to go to sleep. So we're kind of in a world, not an excuse, but it kind of exposes for us that as we look at our world, it kind of confirms that there's no peace. When you hear that listen, man, okay, now I'm chilling. I'm cool. The truth of the matter is, like, how can it be if I'm going to need this again shortly?
Mm-hmm.
So aren't we living? It doesn't even the need and the multiple millions of people, doesn't that tell us something about the world where there is no peace?
Yeah, and I think that I'm going to need this again shortly only works shortly, right? At some point, you need something else. I need the stronger version of this because this doesn't work anymore. Now, your body builds up a tolerance. It's like, I used to do this, now that doesn't work, and I used to do this. And to your point, you're seeking peace by artificial means. You're seeking, to settle your mind by artificial means. And yeah, that can be done temporarily through drugs. But you're right. I mean, everything now has a drug. Everything now has something you can ingest or get shot up with, and like, take this and your kid will be calm. And we have something for ADHD, we have something for this, we have something for that. But none of those things. Steroids. I mean, you name it. I mean, you have for anything. I have anxiety. Your doctor can prescribe you something. I have this. Doctor can prescribe anything. You go to them and you say, I have. They have something they can give you that can help short term. But it really doesn't solve the issue. It just gets you out of the office, right, in 15 minutes.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't solve the issue. The underlying issue is, okay, why don't you have peace? Why aren't you able to rest your mind at night? Why are you not able to, why are you anxious all the time? Like, those are real problems that are not solved by long term by ingesting something. Just not.
Right.
And
absolutely.
we have to ask ourselves, what is going on?
Right. Well, let's talk about Juul. What happened with the lawsuit?
Let's look at the clip, and then let's talk about what Juul was up to.
Okay.
All right.
Juul has agreed to pay $438.5 million to 34 states and territories over its marketing practices. While not admitting guilt, Juul says that it's all in the past, and the company now has a new, more honorable mission. The 2-year investigation finding Juul intentionally tried to appeal to children with ads like these, featuring young, trendy models. Other marketing tactics included hosting launch parties for new products, offering free samples, advertising on social media, and selling products and flavors attractive to children. Juul commenting in a statement, the terms of the agreement are aligned with our current business practices. We remain focused on the future as we work to fulfill our mission to transition adult smokers away from cigarettes, the #1 cause of preventable death, while combating underage use.
So 400 something, almost half a billion, $1 billion is not chump change, but the fact that was the settlement tells you that they're making a ton of money.
Absolutely.
On these products that they know are potentially harmful to adults and children. In fact, let me just pull this up real quick, and then we can talk about the clip. If you go to their website. There you go. Go to the website. This is what pops up. This is the first, and literally in black and white. Warning, this product contains nicotine, and nicotine is an addictive chemical, yet they sell it, and they produce it, and they continue to sell it, and we're targeting kids with it, which sounds crazy, but I mean, it's the money. And their marketing plan, right? Free samples and, certain flavors. They just sound like a regular drug, just a basic drug plan. And we give out this little bit of free sample. You get hooked. We got customers forever. So it just sounds like just a basic, simple, been around forever sort of drug plan. And but that plan can't work unless there's a demand for something.
Absolutely.
In the first place. You agree with that?
Sure. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, it kind of speaks to they obviously are they're feeding and filling a niche. But it's really the niche, right? It's that, and Juul can get this is a huge settlement, but that happened with Pall Mall, that happened with the big tobacco before this, and so we've been here, and this is really about the need. This is kind of a scratch across the face, but the truth of the matter is that scratch heals real quick because there's such a huge need for this product. In some ways, they're just really going where the trend is. I mean, if you got, something about like if you got a lot of kids looking, a lot of people looking around your house and looking at the window. You could really look outside and think like there's a bunch of creeps. Or you could ask yourself, why are they so attracted to my house? And so when you look at these companies, you can think, man, there's such creeps for targeting these kids. Or you can look and say, what's happening that they see these kids are unguarded? See, the truth of the matter is, by us hoping that legislation protects our kids instead of parents protecting their kids, that's really, as we farm this job out, again, we kind of look and say, finally something for the kids. Well, they said that in the 80s with big tobacco, in the 90s, right? Finally, this will stop. No more smoking in the movies, so finally we're going to make them smoke outside. And they thought that would really work. And they did. The same kids, the same parents grew up and said, they're just not going to vape. They fell into the same trap. The blind lead the blind. They both fall into the ditch. This is just a generational handoff. Their parents were blind to their smoking. They now willfully blinded themselves to their children vaping and said, there's no harm in that, is there? Within the internet age, if you and I can find it, Juul is not just, they weren't forced to put it out there. It's been out there.
It's been out there.
It's been out there. So, you can find out what's going on with Justin Bieber. It seems like, you can find out, like, I wonder what's in that thing that they're puffing around here that they weren't puffing before.
If you care, but then if you're just sort of half paying attention and half listening, you say, well, it's sort of like smoking, but it's not as dangerous as smoking, so I'm not gonna really worry about that much, and things of that nature. And then we just saw it has nicotine in it. And nicotine is on their own website. They say this has a potential to be addictive on their own website. So that's just, again, just parents not paying attention to what their kids are doing, what their kids are ingesting. I just did a quick search just out of curiosity to see where Juuls are sold. And I found 34 places where you can buy Juuls within a 10-mile radius of where we live. Like 34 places. Every convenient Wawa,
everywhere.
Highs, Rural Farms, get pretty much everywhere you can buy stuff, you can buy Juul. And
because the problem with cigarettes was really the smell, right? The truth of the matter is, we really didn't hate. The head stops. You jack up the price of cigarettes, and you see what happened. People found ways to get that money. They found ways, no matter how exorbitant the price, $5, $6, $7 for a pack, $10 for a pack. Listen, people are still paying, so they're finding a way to get it. That demand is huge. The demand is there, and I think there is where the real issue is that, as a country and as a world, that these are things that I think are almost becoming staples, and because we are continually inventing more stuff. The stuff becomes smaller and smaller. Remember, there was a point where people were looking and saying, you don't give kids coffee, right? Watch out giving them so much tea because of caffeine, right? And there's, and don't put that caffeine in the drink. And there were drinks that really touted the idea like no caffeine, no. And then slowly but surely, you keep adding fentanyl to the mix and add more and more different drugs. You start looking and saying caffeine, small potatoes, man. I don't care anything about that. And you see the same thing it happened with marijuana. You add more of those things, and it's like, that's just weed. That's not really anything. And whether you are pro or con it, you can really begin to see the process where slowly but surely it's crack, but it's not that other thing that does that. And slowly but surely, that's where we really are. So in the drug culture, that's what you're going to get, lesser and greater. And we've always been that.
It's always been that, and there's always been, as long as there's an appetite, the product will be available. There are stores, I've seen places pop up now, but they don't do anything else but sell vape and tobacco. They don't do anything else. That's right. Their entire business is vape products and tobacco products. So clearly there's a large appetite for it. And, parents are not monitoring their kids. So the kids are doing, I think at one point they said it was like 5 million kids or so had actually tried vaping after Juul targeted them, which is crazy. You would think that if a company targeted our kids with poison, they would be put out of business. Right? Guys are done. You're finished. Like, goodbye. We're taking all your assets. We're taking everything, and you no longer exist. They just get hit with a fine that doesn't even cripple them.
How can it be poison though? So if I'm using it, how can I don't view it as poison? I mean, at the end of the day, this is the government, right?
Mm-hmm.
The government has a certain role. So this is the government saying, hey, Jewel, this is bad. But this isn't the people. Now, the people might have said over time, yes, because we got cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, we don't like the fact that you didn't tell us. Now, the same people with cancer were outside the hospital smoking, right? Because they were addicted to it, right? They had their oxygen bottles and they put them over there so they wouldn't ignite them, but they were smoking, right? So at the end of the day, they just simply said, you need to warn us. And they said, okay, we'll do that. We'll warn you. But we already know the hook is in. So at the end of the day, this is just passed down. This is no longer poison. This is regular. So as you may look at this and say, yeah, I equate this to poison. They equate this to freedom.
Yeah. And
freedom of choice.
Yeah.
I think this. It's my point. We're in an addicted world. So I mean, everybody does something. Right? I mean, in our world, alcohol has always been around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the drink and the cigarette, you know, was glamorous.
Yeah, staple. Yeah,
yeah, it was kind of a staple.
Yeah.
So you know, it's part of our world. Go back centuries, and you'll find it's always been here. Some mind-altering substance has always been here. I mean, what do you think about the fact that like it's even in the Bible? Feast days.
Yeah.
It's part of a fallen world, oddly enough.
Yeah.
Not necessarily condone, but there's certain things not condemned. That's a part of how does man become married here in this world? It's weird, right? But you get that. Okay, here's the feast. Let me add this to you so that you can be married. That's really a part of our world. But food does that for us, right? Endorphins.
Right. True.
We get high in this world, and there's a certain need for it. This is artificial, but there's a certain need for it. Sugar.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything like that can become at least mentally addictive. I need my I can't function up my caffeine. I can't function up my sugar because there's a psychological dependence on it at some point, and then I've seen people like can't function. Like the coffee machine is broken, and they might as well go home. They can't do anything. Like they're so used to that artificial boost that without it, they're just sort of like I had no energy. And which is weird, but that's fact. And they don't see themselves as addictive. They just see themselves as, well, that's my morning routine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm addicted to it. That's what I do, man. If I don't get my routine, and then I'm not feeling well. So we
and to that point, think about that. My grandfather drank it, and my father drank it.
Mm-hmm.
We never saw it as an addiction. So if you start talking about caffeine and start talking about it as an addiction, it's not something even in my vocabulary. It's the same thing with vaping. Don't go after the kids so openly. That may be there, but under no circumstances is it poison. So since it's not poison, we won't go after it like poison because it's entrenched in the culture. Just tell us. Just make sure it's out there. We don't want them to. We don't want little Johnny to be able to go to the liquor store, but before he's a certain age. But at the end of the day, our movies still have him drinking and drunk because we still think that it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of a rite of passage, right? Give the guy some money, he'll go in there and get the liquor for you, and then you guys kind of sit back and get drunk, and it's kind of cute. It's really in our world. That's a shame of it, but that's where we are.
It is a shame, but it is where we are. We have a comment.
Uh-oh. I should have said, I know exactly who's about to comment.
William Hill says, man has always had an insatiable appetite in every area of life. Hence, there will always be someone to satisfy the appetite.
Yes, absolutely. And this is something that, I mean, as we look at, nothing can fill this void, right? But, and again, Christ, right? Again, not to try to turn into Bible study, but what we're finding in our world, and whether if we had this conversation about, Jewel, we have a conversation about magic mushrooms. We have a conversation about pornography. All of these are just voids that are in fallen man. And this is just man scrambling around to try to fill that void. What can make me feel better about not feeling complete? Whether it's not having a father, whether it's not feeling love, whatever that is, this is really man reaching out and trying to find it, but not through God. This is Solomon, right? This is, you know, in some ways Ecclesiastes, where Solomon says, hey, I tried wine for all these seasons, and I tried women, and I tried this, right? And he says, you know, but none of it brought me joy. That's all we're really seeing in our world right now, where people are saying, I'm just trying to sniff this and shoot that because I'm trying to find what Solomon couldn't find in his world. I've got, how many women have I slept with? And I'm going to the strip club tonight. You know, and I watch all these pornography pages, you know, but why am I still feeling here alone? You know, I'm P. Diddy, you know, and I'm having another baby at this stage, and I got another girl over here. And so, but yet great love has eluded him.
Right.
No person there with him. With all that money, can't find one person to be there. It takes 6 and 7. So is it strange that he's going to have Ciroc in his mouth?
No, it's not. It's not strange. It's and
the struggle of man is when you find Christ, is to now get away from that, because it's a part of our life too. Now I still eat. You know, my great joy is still gorging on food that I know will kill me, right? Doctor said no more, no more dairy, and it's like, okay, just one more, one more bowl of ice cream, and I'm done. Right now, no more pork. Yeah. Okay, here's my last pork chop, and then I'm finished. We're just addicted to it. It's a part of the fall.
Yeah, it is, and it's sort of, when you think about it, it's the people who are taking advantage of it are, on some level, not just victimizing other people, but they're also victimizing themselves. I mean, to the extent that they help the world sort of disintegrate, isn't helpful to anyone.
Well, they're ignorant of it because it's normal. Remember, unless the light allows you to see what you and I see.
Right.
Right. It's the light that allows us to see. If you can see behind a plot, it's the light that allows you to see behind a plot. But darkness, all of these are cloaked in darkness, and even those that are blind lead the blind. Right. Nobody can see there. If anybody could actually see, they would definitely not do it. But they're blind, leading the blind. I think this is really going to help people. I think this is really going to work. Listen, I mean, don't arrest them. Let they should be able to do heroin on the street.
Right.
It's their right to do it. And so they're blind. They have no idea what that's going to look like on the street. They have no idea what the quality of life in neighborhoods that you could once walk down the street and you can't. They have no idea. That's why we're going through this same cycle of, legalize, criminalize. No, take it away, decriminalize. And we just don't know what to do because we get to see consequences, but our nature simply says, I still need it though.
Well, and the problem with trying to use consequences as a deterrent is that everyone doesn't get the same consequences. Like people we're built different, and the things that I could ingest something, you can ingest something, have two totally different experiences. So people who smoke 20 years and like they don't have any health problems. They're healthy as some people look at a cigarette and it's like cigarette. So you just don't. There's just no. You can't say for sure. Like you say, this is probably going to happen. That's probably going to happen. But people always believe, but it's not going to be me.
Right.
Damn, they're weak. That's not going to be me. And so you always have the issue of, if you do this, this is going to be the absolute outcome. And people say, what about them? They did it. Nothing happened to them.
Right.
They did nothing happened to them. They did this thing. Nothing happened to them. So you always have an example of somebody doing something and quote unquote getting away with it, and people will bank on that. That's going to be me too. I'm gonna get through it too. So you can't really use the consequences as a sort of don't do it because of this, because it may not happen to them.
It may not happen. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And I think, in some ways, if all the consequences were going to be bad, wouldn't they then beg the question, do I have a right to do it still? Do I have a right to hurt myself if I want to? Again, if you take it back to sugar, right? If we just go drug for drug, okay, do you get to eat as much ice cream as you want? You know, can you? Who says like that's your last Snicker? You one more Jolly Rancher and it's over the line, right? Nobody says that. And if my teeth rot out of my face right before your very eyes, do I have a right to do it? And I guarantee you, the average person would say yes. If I can eat all fatty foods that I want to, right? If I can go around and just say I'm going to eat fast food all day, every day, who would stop me? So if that's the case, shouldn't I be able to smoke and drink as much as I want? If I don't beat anybody up at Walmart getting my chips, then if I don't hurt anybody getting my drugs, what's the difference? Since they're all the same. I mean, it kind of comes down to that question of rights.
Rights and freedoms, yeah.
Rights and freedoms.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we pride ourselves in being in a free society, but being in a free society means, you know, you give up certain things. Ironically, like you give up the right to tell somebody else that they can't do stuff in their own home. Like you do. You can. I mean, you can, but you can't. And we see more and more that the government and law enforcement, not that they won't. They won't do that. That they won't go into people's houses and tell them, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, you're getting, as freedom expands, you're actually making it easier for people to do things that are dangerous to themselves and to other people. But that's the kind of price of freedom.
Sure. I mean, that is freedom can be dangerous in that way. But I mean, I guess not sure we'd ever want another freedom to be for the government, because now you have to trust them. We've seen how they roll. So now you have to trust them to determine what's right for us.
Yeah.
The perpetrators are so much of the damage. You know, here's what the meat should be like. And then we find out, like, you're not dyeing it red, are you? You know, you're not putting wax on the apples, are you? You know, so we find the same government that, like, you know, we said we checked all the pigs, but we really do like 1 in 20.
Right.
That's how the trichinosis got in. We didn't check the cabbage. That, you know, so the salmonella came through the cabbage. It was as weird as that is. All of those things. I mean, can we trust the government to go in that direction? Now, again, I think it puts us back into that, you know, into that place of the question of freedom. What is that really like? And I mean, do we have the freedom to destroy ourselves? And listen, I think the answer is yeah, which is why we will eventually do that. Rome had the freedom to destroy itself, right? It refused to be ruled, right? Whenever that was just a emperor, someone ruling me, someone making a final decision. So that means a nation won't even allow God to do it, because that whole idea of a ruler is for these empires is impossible. Think of this democracy. Can we have a ruler? Could we have someone say, I'm going to make a decision about what's good for you, even if you don't like it? Could we ever stand it?
No. I mean, no. Because there'd be people who disagree with that would say, no, I'm not standing for it. And some people who would agree, like, yeah, let's not do that. But you're going to have enough people who say, nah, we want that you're going to get it. The government would not be able to do that, because you just have enough people who would say, yeah. And a good example of that, let's flip to the discussion on the magic mushrooms. Let's look at a clip, and then we'll come back and talk about that.
Okay.
Magic mushrooms will soon be legal here in Colorado now that Prop 122 has officially been passed by voters.
So starting in 2024, for those 21 and over, it will no longer be illegal to possess, use, and cultivate psychedelics, including psilocybin mushrooms. Now, 2 years after that, it expands to include other psychedelics like mescaline. Now, Prop 122 also sets up a system for state-regulated settings where people could consume psilocybin under trained supervision. And this afternoon, I met with Kevin Matthews. He's the director of Natural Medicine Colorado, which got this on the ballot. Now, he says this will be such an important resource to treat mental illness.
What we're making possible is for Coloradans to be able to use these medicines in a structured way to help them with their mental health and behavioral health issues.
Now, Prop 122 does not legalize the sale or recreational use of psychedelics. And Matthews says the first healing centers, as they're called, should be open sometime in 2025.
So, this guy might mean well, but he's completely delusional. if he actually believes that the only people who are going to use magic mushrooms are going to show up at a clinic and say, Doc, give it to me. I'm just going to sit here and just in the office, in a medical facility. I mean, I think that's beyond crazy. I think smoking is legal, right? Vaping is legal across the country. Now marijuana is legal, being made legal across the country. This is just the next step. Well, there should be no surprise that psychedelics were next on the list. We've been sliding that way the entire time, like to the point where you can't tell me about anything I'm going to use that may be mind altering or otherwise have a negative effect. You can't tell me anything about that. And it's interesting. The people in Colorado chose to have this, and they're going to reap the consequences. There's going to be consequences. I'm not going to say they don't care, but I don't think they're really thinking about it. They're thinking about, like we talked about earlier, I want to be able to give me some mushrooms, go home in the basement, and trip on my mushrooms in the privacy of whenever I want to. That's
again. It kind of, but it doesn't it beg the question? Isn't it the same thing? Okay, so I'm gonna go get a fifth of Hennessy, and I'm gonna get a couple glasses, and I'm gonna trip on my brown liquor, right? Okay, so that's done. What's the difference? Now again, if there are illegal things done, you're going to have, like if you drink and then drive. That's really problematic, right? If you drink and then you go outside and you want to fight the neighbor. Right. Yeah, that's problematic. It'll be the same thing with marijuana or psilocybin or the magic mushroom. I'm not sure if there's a history of that though. See, I think that what you may find is that in looking at these, there's really zero medicinal qualities that are going to be found in wine. Certainly, there's some, but like you don't find that in liquor. Like I mean, there's not a lot of medicinal qualities found in Jack Daniels or Jim Beam. Right? Doctors don't generally prescribe it, but aren't doctors using marijuana though, even with cancer patients? Right? There's some real medicinal benefits. I wonder if we're not opening ourselves up to certain things that are medicine that may be couched in between alcohol and fentanyl, but may not be in the same category. Now, again, if you were getting high, the question is, it still kind of brings it back. Not necessarily like, do I agree with you getting high or not getting high, but do you have the right to do it? If it's mind altering, what would be the difference in, I'm going to go to the liquor store. I'm going to get some liquor. Now, how much? Who regulates? How much?
Nobody. No, nobody. You can buy the whole store if you want. You had the money. You can. Right. Have it delivered. Yeah, you can absolutely you can do that. There's no limits on that. Regardless of the potency of the alcohol you're buying, just there's no limits. Right. The thing is, like, something that could be medicinal on one hand could be poison in another hand, right? In another person's hand. It depends on a lot of different circumstances. But I think, the root of it is, if something could potentially have medicinal purposes, then that's what people are going to stand on. And then under those circumstances, no, you really don't have any way to restrict or really regulate it. I mean, This is the start of totally saying do whatever you want. Like, they can say all they want about that's like to keep people from being like freaking out. They say it's going to be regulated. You're going to have to go to the clinic. You're going to have to be under supervision. Right. This. That's today. Next week they're going to say, you know what? We've done it for a week and we're good. People are not good. We find this is not going to be a problem. People can just pick it up wherever they want and they can go and do whatever they want. Just like now you have marijuana and CBD dispensaries all over the place. And just go in if you're over 21 and you can buy whatever you want. Edibles. You can be driving in your car and drive an edible. You can take an edible to work. Like, if no one knows it's edible, eat them and ingest marijuana and CBD anywhere. Right. We've opened that up, and this is going to take sort of the same path. I'm at work, I have a big meeting, I'm freaking out. Let me just eat this part of this mushroom. I'm going to be good. Who's going to stop them?
Well, okay, so if you did that and you didn't freak out anymore, what would be the harm? Okay, I'm freaking out. I got this presentation. I take this little microdose, some magic mushroom. Not so I'm totally freaking out. Nobody's face is melting, but I'm able to finish the presentation. I remember everybody's name.
Yeah,
okay. So what's the harm?
Well, it's an artificial temporary solution. So this time I took one bite. Next time I need three. Next time after that I need 3 mushrooms. So it's an escalating scale to which one day you are going to see faces melting, and something bad is probably going to happen. I mean, that's the danger. Now that may not occur, but it might. Right.
But I mean, don't you have to have a history of that? Because they've been around a long time. You don't really have a history of, mushroom freakouts, right? You don't have a history of that in car accidents. You don't have a history of that with marijuana freakouts. You do have with alcohol. You do have with crack, but you don't have this with thousands of years of history. You just don't have it. It just kind of almost is like we've placed it in this category that maybe it may not need to be in the same grouping. The idea of mind altering, I'm not sure necessarily means negative.
It doesn't necessarily mean negative, but if you're telling me that this should be taken under medical supervision, then it's
no. It has medicinal qualities, not necessarily. Because you're right. Now that's the Michael.
That's what they're saying. They're saying that's where they're going to start. We're going to start with you have to go somewhere where you do it under medical supervision. Right. So if you're telling me that, then you're telling me that this is a potentially dangerous substance that someone should not be taking at home in the basement by themselves.
No, I think what you have is the political idea in the same way they did marijuana. We can't just legalize it right away, so we've got to give you the fake card, and you got to have a bad back because people can't. That's really what they did with marijuana. I mean, initially it was, it's for medicinal purposes, but you could drive by and see people who jogged up there. You came up in a tracksuit. Yeah. Here's my card. So in truth, the whole idea was we're just here. We're trying to work this so that people can ingest it, but the real idea is that we really think this needs to be legalized. And the same thing with magic mushrooms. We've got, because it does have medicinal purposes. There have been great studies done with people with PTSD. Yeah. Now, the question of is there damage that can happen if you take it? I don't know that there's a history of damage other than a history of you getting high. And so in some ways, we would be legislating in some ways morality. Okay, you're getting high, but we don't see any violence that necessarily comes from it. We don't see we don't see mass murders or people who are they had a bad trip and they killed somebody on magic mushrooms. We really don't have a history of that. You don't have a history of that with marijuana. Yeah. So you kind of have to assume it.
You do have to assume it, and I mean, how would you judge someone who has PTSD? How would you judge whether or not it was the mushroom or something else? Like if they have PTSD, they're already sort of damaged, so to speak. So then how would you judge their behavior to be the result of anything other than the PTSD?
No, I'm saying
I'm just saying in generic. You have to do studies and whatnot to determine. Right. Okay, this is what happens if someone has PTSD and they take these things for over some period of time. Absent that, I'm saying as a layperson, I have no way of knowing, and a doctor who hasn't treated them would have no way of knowing, right?
No, I'm saying that like in a treatment area, right? Mushrooms have been used for patients who have PTSD, right? So
absolutely.
So they're aware that it has medicinal qualities, right? And they realize, okay, here are the qualities that it has. People who stuttered, and so it's helped them with that. So they realize, okay, here's some medicinal qualities, but there is the get high component. Right, there is you just want that type of high, right? And I think there's that question of, okay, if you want that, should that be against the law? Is there because that's what alcohol, that's what nicotine, that's what caffeine. What about with caffeine for? There are people who drink coffee don't like the taste. I hate the taste of coffee, but I like what it does, right? So what makes this different other than the stigma that we've attached to it? Without there been a lot of killing on caffeine, there's not a lot of murder that happens after Dunkin' Donuts.
I mean, I think what you have is we don't have an opioid crisis because people need opioids to calm down. We have opioid crisis because people abuse opioids, right? People abuse because they just want to get high. Now, I had myself, full disclosure, I have been prescribed opioids and taking them under doctor supervision. And what I can tell you is that it for pain, right? It's not a painkiller. It just makes you forget about the pain. Right. It's just floating. So it's like that the pain is not going. You're not feeling it. And so
Absolutely.
I having taken them, I understand why somebody would say, I want this feeling every single day. And then you take one, and then one doesn't get you to the same point. Gotta take two. I gotta take three. Now I'm stealing stuff to get it. Like any other drug, right? Any other addiction, even gambling, right? Even gambling, they people steal stuff to feed their habits. So it's all the same. So I think, to your point, and less than tell there's a stigma, people are probably going to just say, yeah, you know, as long as they're not hurting anybody.
And like gambling, you know, I mean, it's kind of, it's like gambling. I mean, I think it's, you know, gambling is kind of a weird one because, you know, you go to like you didn't live far from Atlantic City. You go to down Atlantic City, all the way down, they've got these big placards about, like, if you have a problem with gambling, you know, call this number. You know, don't be ashamed. Here's Gamblers Anonymous. Because there's a knowledge. There's like, we know this is addictive, but you have a right to do it. And I think it's not, mine is an agreement or disagreement. It is really kind of following that interesting way that we do it here in the land of democracy. That, you know, we can't, I don't want to legislate this, but you could get addicted. Like, I mean, there's all kinds of things, like, I mean, all the way down to Atlantic City, you see, you know, don't sell your home. You know, don't, here's how much money you need to take. Only gamble with what you can afford. There's all these signs because they know there's somebody who's going to gamble themselves out of their house. But that person in America has a right to lose their house through this vice.
Well, yeah, and we've talked about this many times, talk about this tonight, because we live in a fallen, immoral society. So in a fallen, immoral society, I actually worked when I was in college in Atlantic City for a year, one of the casinos. In a fallen, immoral world, right? We sit in a room and watch people lose $1 million, and we do nothing. We don't say, "Oh, wait a minute, that's enough. You're good. You lost $100,000. You straight." No, we don't. Not only do we not do that, we say, "We'll put you up for the night, so you can lose another $1 million tomorrow. We'll feed you. We'll supply you with drinks." I mean, there's something. So but we'll say, you know, if you got a gambling problem, you know, make sure you call this number. But by the way, here we'll front you another month.
Right.
So it's like, with one hand you're saying, you know, we're gonna help you. The other hand, we're like, you're pulling you in, like, come on back in here. You know, it's no big deal. I mean, like you said, these online betting things are now proliferating. At the end of every single one, call 1-800-GAMBLERS Anonymous, because they already know that people are going to be addicted to it.
Absolutely.
And so they're setting people up to fail, but the money's just the money and the profit is just too good to ignore. And we have a comment. Let me jump in here and get this comment. But yeah, that's crazy. Willie Mae again. Thanks for the comment, Willie Mae. She says, though this is not a Bible study, all roads are going to lead back to the premise that all things are lawful, but all things are not expedient, meaning beneficial. We have intentionally chosen the non-beneficial thing, regardless of the peril. No, I mean, it's not a Bible study, but certainly those references to the Bible are welcome and pass the noise, because that's absolutely, I totally agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. All roads do lead back to that same sort of mindset where we feel free, like, not hurting anybody else, so I'm good. That permissiveness you see throughout our society, really throughout the world. I mean, that's what it is. And we
and you know, and what we need to do would be something that we, in some cases, well, here's the thing: we can't do. You know, we know what's actually happening. You know, part of, you know, being here and, you know, on this podcast and also being ministers, you know, people look for a solution. They're looking for, you know, some way to stop it. And the solution is not just like, well, here's what I need to do. But it's like, oh, no, we're talking about violence. Like, I want to know, like, how do you stop it? We talk about poverty. How do you stop it? And when you look at the Bible, we're on a downward slide. It's really, you're not going to stop this society. He says the poor you'll have with you always, right?
Yeah.
Right. They're always going to be here. So this idea of like, don't, you know, let's stop poverty. Well, there's no way we can legislate against what's going on in our society. We have to simply be aware of it and begin to teach people about really what is there, shed a light. And so those are called to the light can actually see it. Like, here's what it is. But there's a demand here. There, you know, the guy who's selling the poison looks crazy. But you know what? I mean, like, they only had, like, if you look at Jim Jones, right? Jonestown, there was only a handful of people who were charged with passing out the poison.
Right.
Right. but there were thousands of people who drank the poison. Right? So we can look at the handful of people who are like, look at what you're doing. Or we can look at these thousands of people and say, look what you're doing. Because did you see her just fall out over there? And like she just fell out and went into convulsions, and you're still in line to get another cup. That's, as you look at that, I think there is where we need to look at, not at these companies, but at the demand. Because if we shut them down, isn't another one going to pop up to fill this demand?
Absolutely. Or just go underground, because the demand will not be quenched.
And they were pimping.
Yeah, it won't be deterred by it's illegal. I was like, okay.
Right. We clean up the streets. We clean up the streets with our prostitutes, right? They just went online. Right? It's really what they did. They just went online, and you couldn't run them off the streets. And they would think they all just had an internet account. Just wait. No. There was a demand that said, hey, Tanya, why don't you do this? Hey, Sugarcane, why don't you do this? There was a demand. There was help to get them online, because there was still that guy. The John was no longer just driving up saying beep, beep. The John was now on his phone. So it's really us. It's that brings that demand. You don't have any more customers, there'd be no more prostitutes. The reason for prostitutes is because prostitutes have customers.
No, the product will always find the demand, right? The demand for the product drives, what the product does and where the product goes.
Right.
Regardless of whether it's people or things or whatever, drugs, you cannot plug up the dike of human desire. You just can't, because people will go through extraordinary lengths to get the things that they want, illegal or not. Like, I don't know, we think that laws stop people, but laws only stop people who obey laws, right? The only person that's not, man, that's not legal, I'm not going to do that. The person who's desperate and feels like I want this, they're not thinking of the consequences. They think they're not going to get caught.
Right.
They think they're not going to get caught. There's been tons of studies done that shows that people who engage in criminal behavior do so because they don't think they're going to get caught. Not that they don't know it's illegal, not they know, man, it's 10 years if I get caught doing this. It's like, I'm going to get caught.
Right.
So that's why they do it. So it's the same thing here. And if I get caught, Jewel got caught. They got caught. They got caught basically selling a product illegally, targeting minors illegally for products, and knowing that the minors were illegally buying these products. He's supposed to be 21 or better. Right. Knowing that they're sold at every convenience store. You just walk through a convenience. What convenience store is going to say, nah, I'm good. I'm not going to say.
Right.
Some might, right? You might find 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10 that won't. But the kids know what store to go to that they can get a
absolutely
get a six-pack. They know what store to go to that they can pick up a package. They know where to go, because there's always someone's going to say, if it's not me, it's going to be somebody else. If I don't sell, you're going to get it somewhere else. So what's the difference? So,
absolutely.
Yeah, you're always going to have that.
Absolutely. But what I think what's more important is that they've got an example. Remember, as you look at this, that's the same example that their parents lived in, on the corner store. Right, cigarette everywhere. Get kids going. Go get me a pack of cigarettes. Right, from the 50s and 30s. So we just pass it down. So the companies just morph, from Newport to Jewel, right? But the same dynamic is the same corner stores there, and where the kids get it is they get the same example. The same parents who said, hey, let's stop them and make them get an ID before these kids are buying cigarettes. No more Lucy's for Aunt, Susie. Go down and buy me 2, right? That we're going to try to stop that, right? But the example's already set. So now we're just fighting the same fight and saying, no, don't market it to the kids. But the example has already been there. They're still like, I watch you do this. So we're just going to do the same exact thing. We passed that down and then tried to whip the same horse. We whipped Big Tobacco, right? Same horse.
Right. Well, we tried.
We tried to, right?
We got kicked. got
I don't know why we thought they were a one-trick pony. They've got much more up their hook than we thought. Yeah.
For all of these products, the kids are not the primary market, right? They're secondary. They're just wait a minute, we can sell it to kids. But there would be no market to the kids if the adults didn't want it. So vaping wasn't for the kids. It was made for adults.
It's not like a bunch of 13-year-olds have a whole bunch of money. You know,
Right.
they're out there spending. You know, no, it's kids, and you know the reality is, though it's, I mean, the adults are the greatest consumers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's a lot of crowing about it, but the truth of the matter is, it's the adults that want these very same flavors. You know, we don't like the idea that like it's grape, you know, it's cotton candy, but the truth of the matter is, it's adults that eat, you know, eating grape. Listen, give me some Jolly Ranchers. I like grape Jolly Ranchers, and, you know, apple Jolly Ranchers.
Right.
So
Sure.
it would be the same.
Yeah.
It's the same. The problem really isn't like, oh, look, you're targeting kids. No, it's that our society has already targeted them.
Mm.
They're already in the crosshairs in every single area. We're targeting them everywhere. So the idea that like this is bad, every place is targeting, every community, LGBTQ, every group is targeting the youth. Who doesn't? Evangelism, churches, right? Who's not targeting the youth?
Well, not just being targeted, but they're vulnerable because they are not being given the protection they need to be able to fend off these attacks.
Yes.
They're
Well,
not
you know, who's supposed to fend off the attacks? The parents.
Their parents.
See, that's a missing component.
Yeah.
So with that not being there, we're really hoping the government will do what, like you said, this government came by and put these stickers on and said you can't sell it unless they're 21. You know, big fines. And then the guys say, yeah, put the sticker up there. And then some little kid, you know, 3'9", come and say, let me get a couple packs of cigarettes. You know, I mean, and they were like, here you go. You still owe me $1. I mean, it didn't change anything. Because we're hoping the government would do the job that we were supposed to do. And that throne has been abdicated for a long time.
Right.
It's not there. So the slide is in. The downward spiral is here. The destruction is here. And it's not going to be something that we're going to recover from. Only those that are called, the righteous. I mean, not ones that are doing right. Those that are called. They're the only ones who will be saved in this downward slide. Remember, the Lord said, listen, if I don't hasten my return, even the very elect would be deceived.
Yep.
We've got a nation that is being blinded, that this is actually cool. And so eventually we start with these things that are about our liberty. We're having a discussion about magic mushrooms. We will have another discussion about other things that now will move into the area that will be absolutely ridiculous. Now will be heroin. You know, eventually it's going to go in that direction. Because, you know, if you go with gay marriage and start right there, trust me, we'll have a discussion about a man and a horse. And it's as crazy as that appears, there will be a discussion about a lady in her car. And what is love? That's where we're going in this country. So just as we're looking and saying, what makes you a woman? Why should we be shocked? Why should we be shocked by anything that we're seeing right before us? This is just the time of confirmation of those very same things that this world, that we suffer from insatiable lust. This just confirms it. And you can't just say it without having something that says, hey, look, it's right there. And God is just allowing this to give us that ability to be able to say, no, look, right there. This is lawless. You want to see lawlessness? There it is right there. But without it, we couldn't see it. He doesn't tell us to fix it. He says, point it out.
Yeah.
Because we can't fix it. We need protection from it. We just have to be messengers to be able to say, there it is. Jeremiah couldn't fix it. He was there to point it out. Cry loud and spare not.
Yeah. Yeah. We have another comment.
Uh-oh. She's on a roll.
Well, he says, I set before you life and death. We are encouraged to choose life, but we still have the choice to choose death. So we can still choose death for ourselves and for our families, right? As a parent, if I'm not aware of what's going on, I'm not aware of what my kids are doing, then you are really helping them choose,
Right?
The path of death. And I guess that goes back to our earlier discussion about freedom. We are free to choose death.
Right.
We're absolutely free.
You know what? I mean, look at this. This rises, you know, what's going on and what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
This will, in some ways, stand and rise in judgment against ignorance. The idea that, like, how could I have known? Right? I mean, we're doing it tonight. There's other podcasts out there. So how could I have known? The alarm bell is ringing. It's just that parents are finding other things. That with this internet, they're finding other things that are important, not what is going on with the kid. What's happening right now? They should know about what's going on and what things are these attacks that are going on against their families. But that's not really what's important. They're really trying to find out what's going on Love and Hip, the latest episode of Love and Hip Hop. Really trying to really go back and forth with Twitter beefs.
Right.
Knowing exactly what Kanye, where is he at? He's missing, but I'm tracking him. But you're not tracking the things that need to be done. And I think the whole goal is we got to put it out there.
Yeah.
But we can't. Our job is not to fix it. Our job is just to expose it.
I can't. I mean, there's just so many distractions and so many other things. I mean, you got 800 and some cable channels. You got
right.
You got this. There's so many things. So if people choose to do other things, to your point, all you can do is say, you might want to look over here at this thing. This is important. This is more important than that. But you can't make them choose. Can't make them choose. And to force them to choose would be something that God doesn't force them to choose. God
That's right.
Choose. God doesn't say you go and put that that phone down. Do this. He didn't do that. He's saying if you choose to do that, here are the consequences.
Right.
Which should make us do it. But he won't drag you kicking and screaming to do
Absolutely.
it. He just won't. But he's also not going to be, want to hear a whole bunch of crying and hollering when, my kid is this and my kid is that. This happened to him. Like, where were you when this was going on? Where were you when when they were up in their room doing this? That I can't go in this room. I can't go in their room. Got to respect their privacy. I mean, yeah, but you also have a responsibility to make sure what's going on in your house, in that room, is pleasing. It would be pleasing to God. Like, that's not like some kind of secret, center. They're not like the government agent. Like, you can't go in there. It's a skiff. You need a security clearance. Like, nah, that's a room in my house.
Right.
Everything in my house, I'm going to know what's going on for their own benefit. And you don't expect your kids to always understand that the things that you do are for their benefit, but you still got to do them anyway. But along with the whole permissive society thing, you get parents who are like, I'm hands off. Well, I can't. I don't want to force them to do this. I don't want to force them to do that. That's the point where they're adults. You can't force them to do stuff. But when they're kids, you still would be training them. You got to train them like you would train anybody else. Who
Absolutely.
Doesn't know, right? Someone who doesn't know they need to be trained. You can't say, they'll figure out how to do the books. Don't worry about it. It's all good. I mean, you train them how to do it, right? Or you expect that it's not going to be done correctly. It's one of the other.
Absolutely.
One of the
Because training has a mandatory element to it. You got to do these wind sprints, right?
Right.
It's not optional. It's just the time for weights. We're doing leg day. I know you want to look big and bulky, but we're doing back today. I mean, if training, it has things that you don't like.
Yeah.
And the more and more we get down to feelings and emotions being what it's all about, then we're going to have a society that is really emotionally a wreck. Because it's not about letting your feelings out. It's about putting some fences around them. Because they're run amok. And the more we tear down the fences and we think that we're getting freedom, we're really only leaping into bondage.
Yeah, so that's the freedom. The freedom to run.
I'm free to go back if I want. I'm free to walk out of the light and into the darkness.
I mean,
that's freedom.
I mean, the children of Israel wanted to go back to Egypt. They were out. They're like, this isn't what we bargained for. Let's go back. I'm like, they like, we forget how quickly we forget that the thing that God has taken us out of wasn't good in the first place.
Right.
So, that thing that you think did you look back and say, oh, why did I come out of that? Well, because it wasn't good. And I think we got to treat, our lives in the world as if, the things that are not good, the things that should be are prohibited for a reason. It's not to stop your fun and make you have a bad day. It's because those things bring harm, bring death, bring destruction. And we see that every day as our world slides into a more and more degraded state. You see that without those principles in place, that's exactly what happens.
Well, no doubt. And you know what? I mean, here's reality. We've got to really define freedom because, I mean, the children of Israel came out from Pharaoh with the definition of freedom that they would have no leader, that they would have no master, that no one would tell them what to do. And isn't that what we define freedom as? Freedom. We're
Yes.
actually we're free to be under the right master. That's what true freedom is. I'm now free to choose correctly, but I'm going to be led one way or the other. I'm not a leading agent. I'm going to be led by Satan. I'm going to be led by God. But either way, I'm not a leading agent. When we delude ourselves, children of Israel thought they were leading agents. They came out and said, "Wait a minute, we just left one master for another master."
Right.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
this one has restrictions on my morality.
Mm-hmm.
Not Pharaoh. Let's go back.
Yeah. And he's taking too long. What's the whole?
He's taking too long. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. We are well over time.
Yes, sir.
We are 5 minutes, but man, great discussion. We'll pick it up next week because we were going to talk some about the government, how the government sort of plays into this, and how there's some things going on in the government that look one way, but are actually something completely different.
Right.
And how it plays into some of our freedom. So we'll pick it up next week with that discussion. But man, I thoroughly enjoyed.
Absolutely.
Thoroughly enjoyed this one. And so, man, thank you as always. Thank you for everyone who for watched. Thank you for making comments. Thank you for Willie Mae's comments. They were insightful and helpful. And
Absolutely.
Sort of, push the conversation along. So we're thankful and we're grateful.
Appreciate it.
Hopefully you'll join us again next week, 7 o'clock, same spot. We'll have another great discussion. So we'll see you then.
Look forward to it.
Good night and God bless.
God bless.